This is Transcending with Torie, live from Kchung's ongoing radio residency at MOCA at the Geffen Contemporary. Today's guest is my cousin, artist Lynda Weinman, a digital artist whose mediums are 3D ceramics that utilize computer technology. She uses 2D Adobe software and 3D tools that include Rhino 3D, Grasshopper, Blender, Topology, and Potterware, alongside a myriad of 3D printers. She is an artist who incorporates geometric and parametric forms in her body of work. She has exhibited at Sullivan Goss and recently made a body of work to benefit Santa Barbara's Lotus Botanical Garden. Today, we will focus on her art practice through the lens of music. Hi, Lynda. Welcome to Transcending with Torie. So nice to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Torie.
Thanks for being here. Before we get started, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and I really want to know about you, Lynda Weinman, the artist, through the lens of music. And having spent a lot of time with you, you're my dear cousin and fellow artist. I love when you talk about music and your influences, and you just have such a vast array of a musical knowledge. So I wanted to ask you the first question today. What is your most prominent musical memory?
I think my most prominent is once when I was in a sound bath, and it was a guy who collected Tibetan bowls, and he had everybody lie on the ground and close our eyes, and I hallucinated. Like, it was full on major hallucinations. I wished I could have had a movie camera in my brain, because it was kind of what we think about, like mandalas and, repetitive, really bright psychedelic colors and stuff. It was just, I've never had music impact me that way. And I actually ultimately purchased some bowls and I play them, but I've never had that experience before or since. It was so otherworldly. It was impossible to describe or capture. I was definitely tuned into another channel. It was remarkable. It was transcendent.
Yeah, I really feel that. And
Yeah.
It brings me to our next question. As far as such an influential experience, were there specific artists or people that also led you to your art career and having these experiences?
I definitely, my first favorite painter when I was a lot younger, like a teenager, was Kandinsky. I've always loved abstract art. I've always loved geometry and, really interested in the Bauhaus period and very drawn to abstraction. And also there's an artist who I learned about, Oscar Fischinger, who does musical art. And he was very active in the 1930s. And he was kind of the first person to make music videos out of abstract art. And actually Disney hired him to do the Fantasia sequence, the hallucination sequence in Fantasia. Really influenced me. And then I would say that more, closer to today, I'm very influenced by Yayoi Kusama. She's also a favorite, and I love her infinity nets, her connection to plants and our infinite connections with one another. And I listen to a lot of, I watch a lot of Instagrams and YouTubes and try to follow a lot of different artists. And I also have an art collection, and I have a lot of fairly major artists, but my art collection includes a lot of ephemeral art. So art that changes depending on where you stand and how you look at it. But my art isn't necessarily that way. It's just those are the artists that have spoken to me and who I channel to be present in my environment, my living environment.
Yeah, and just having experienced your art and seeing it firsthand, there are these tangible objects, but I feel the forms of them change as you're looking at it, or if you hold it from a certain angle. So I could totally see those influences in your work.
Yes. Well, your question about music got me thinking about my dad and his influence on me in so many ways. And one of the things that it made me think about was that I grew up as a child knowing that movies were manufactured. They weren't real. The stories weren't real. The people telling the stories weren't real. There were lots of behind the scenes people. I would visit my dad and watch him edit sound and, do Foley work and all this stuff. And so I think the big influence on me is I've always been interested in how things are made and the technical behind the scenes of things. And that led me into a fascination with computers. I became a teacher of computer graphics. That was my career. And as I've been doing my own art practice, learning and teaching have been so integral. And I think part of what I challenge myself with my work is I'm always trying to incorporate something that I've never done before. I'm pushing myself to learn new things constantly. And part of what I'm doing is an exploration. I call them rabbit holes, but I'll find a new technique or a new idea, and I'll just go down the rabbit hole until it leads me to another one. And that's part of that creative flow that I was talking about, where I have so many ideas that I don't even know what to do with all of them.
In your studio, I noticed you have a lot of 3D printers, given all the software and technology that you utilize for your sculptures and works and jewelry making. I wanted to know if music were to be incorporated into the technology in your studio, if 3D printmaking were a genre of sound, what would that be in your mind?
The genre is manifestation. It's about imagining something or creating something and then having it manifest in different materials and at different scales. That's what really fascinates me about it. I think it's a little Star Trek-ian, where you just have the ability to make something from nothing, something from something virtual. Mm-hmm. And that part really captivates me.
So the genre of manifestation as a whole. That really brings me also to these questions are all kind of bleeding into the other, which I'm really loving. As far as manifestation in music, do you believe music has the power to heal? Or do you think we give music meaning? Like if somebody smells a certain scent, it reminds them of a specific memory. Does music do that to you? Does it heal you?
Definitely. I definitely believe that music has healing properties and also the ability to trigger memories and the ability to give you energy. So I listen to a lot of music when I work. I tend to, just like I'm drawn to abstract art, I'm also very drawn to abstract music. Like I love music that it's in another language. I don't know what they're saying, or instrumental music, or music that has a lot of sounds that might be found sounds or unusual sounds. I also really veer away from harmony and repetitive kinds of beats. I love asymmetry. I love surprise. I love dissonance. I love being transported somewhere that I'm not expecting. I don't like the predictable.
Yeah, and I really see that fall into also the category of your art and your work. Holding your work and studying it. Also, I feel the same response as what you're saying. I don't know if you feel the same when you look at your own work.
I do. I mean, I am a new artist. I've been making work full time for the last 3.5 years. So I had never devoted full time to being an artist before now. And I say to my husband, who's always been an artist, is it okay to love your work? I fall in love with my pieces and my work, and I'm just so amazed at how much I love it. And he said, well, don't love it too much. You have to keep critical of it. And I think, that's his perspective, but I honestly can't help it. I'm so amazed that as a new artist, I can make things that I actually like, because I have pretty discerning taste. Or I'd like to think I do. Maybe that's just an egotistical thing to say. I have loved art my whole life. I've collected art. I've been around nonstop around a lot of artists. And so I always thought they were the artist and I wasn't. And so to be able to create things that I actually love and feel do express not representational ideas. So, there are a lot of artists and their work is about profound, important issues and things. My art is not. My art is much more just about form and color and surprise and combination, juxtapositions, and definitely, I think, freedom to express and combine however you can dream. I'm always loving when I discover something new and I've never seen it in anybody else's work and I've never done it myself, and I just get so excited I almost can't sleep. It's very strange.
Yeah, I love that. And your art also has this really playful nature, and just seeing it as a studio visit a few times and seeing your progression of your practice, there's this really major sense of play. And you always invite patrons or guests, please touch everything, play with it, spin the wheel on my new sculpture. And also
Right.
you're mentioning like dreaming and inspiration. My question is now, do you dream with music, or do you wake up with a visual inspiration for a body of work?
I have never dreamed in music, ever. So I cannot recall one dream. And I do dream about my art a lot. And I also wake up with ideas in the middle of the night that just come to me. Like, I don't know if I was dreaming about it, but the moment I become conscious, an idea comes into my head and I think I have to make that. So I'm tuned more into the visual than I am into the auditory in my dreams.
Yeah, I love that. And you just wake up and go to the studio and start creating.
I know. Yeah, true.
So I asked all my guests to curate a playlist based on their life and inspirations. And I was wondering if you've started to think about what would be the music of your life, your career, and what led you to the artist you are now. What songs can we expect?
Well, it was a great prompt and it really did get me thinking. And I guess I started at the beginning to who was the first artist that musical artist that I was really drawn to. And I am in my late 60s. So I was growing up in the 1960s, and I was born in the 50s, but I really became, someone who would consume music in the 1960s. So that is the era of the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills and Nash, all that stuff. I have to say that of all of those artists, I was